Welcome to Module 4.3. We're going to speak about driving deals with conversational fluency. Glad to have Corey Bray with me again.
Thanks, Joseph.
Looking forward to the conversation. I wanted to start off with a side conversation that we had. You had mentioned to me how so many sales leaders talk about how they need people to know their industry, they focus on the business acumen, and you juxtapose that against conversational acumen.
Exactly.
Can you share what you're thinking there and what you see?
Yeah, so companies, especially companies that sell products to many different industries and many different types of buyers, think about how hard it is to become an expert in each one of those areas.
Oh, it's painful, and it takes a huge amount of time.
Huge amount of time, years. And you could spend years doing it and you still won't get there because a lot of these folks have been doing the job for 10, 20, 30 years. So the thing that we look at is the benefit of conversational acumen versus business acumen. Whereas with conversational acumen, you can have a conversation with any executive in any industry by knowing how to ask questions, employ active listening techniques, and then pick up on the things that they've said to ask additional questions in the future. You should know a little bit of business acumen, but it's not something that you need to become a deep expert in for everybody that you sell to.
I think it's a great point. And when I think about the companies I've seen, I see a lot of companies that have pre-canned market or industry education for their teams.
Right.
I don't see as much about conversational training. Do you see much of that?
No, because it's harder. Because pre-canned industry training is facts and figures.
Yes.
Ooh, this is what a supply chain manager does. Okay, that's cool. That's 3 minutes. Timmy's been doing the job for 30 years. So you just gave me a 3-minute overview of that's really helpful. I mean, at least I know a couple words. But now I go and I start talking to Timmy, and then that first question that's asked, I don't know how to respond to. Whereas with conversational acumen, it's a little more challenging because we've got to be able to adapt to our situations. We're like chameleons. We go in there and Timmy wants to talk about supply chain management. Well, do I know how to ask a question in a way that's going to go down the path of learning the types of things that I want to learn in order to either qualify them into my pipeline or disqualify? So
in this, let's see if we can help level up some of our viewers' conversational acumen over the course of the conversation.
Sounds good.
One of the things I love in your book, Triangle Selling, is there's a nice dovetail with the conversation about how conversational intelligence is a combination of art and science, and you hone in on the idea of pain or rewards as a lever. Why is that? Why start there?
Well, people change for one of 3 reasons. They're either seeking reward or they're avoiding pain at the extremes, or in the middle they're avoiding fear, which fear is basically the anticipation of pain. So for simplicity, we'll say we're moving away from pain or we're moving toward reward.
Okay.
And a lot of times when we're doing group trainings with sales teams, we'll say something like, hey, if you have a chance of a $10,000 raise next year, what are you going to do different tomorrow? People are like, might do something different. Maybe won't do anything different. But if I say, hey, there's a chance that you're going to get fired tomorrow, what are you going to do different?
That's a motivator.
That's a motivator, right? And some people think that that's fear, but if you're getting fired tomorrow, the things that are going on in your brain is actually pain because you're sitting there saying, well, how am I going to pay my bills, or how am I going to meet my retirement goals, and all of these other things are associated with that. So pain is something that we work swiftly to resolve and prioritize it, whereas seek and reward is something that's deprioritized, and if it takes a little bit longer, that's okay.
So if I'm chatting with a prospect or a customer, and I keep that in mind, they're motivated by pain or reward,
Right.
What are some of the things I can fold into my conversational toolkit to move the conversation there?
Well, when you're asking discovery questions, make sure they're focused on pain, as opposed to helping them become more efficient or something like that. I mean, efficiency is a good one that I see a lot of people make mistakes around. Think about the last company you worked in. Was there anything inefficient? Everybody says, yeah, there's a lot of things inefficient. Now, of those things that you thought about, how many of them have folks running around trying to hire external vendors to fix them? People can live with inefficiency, and we can sit in the conference room all day and have these academic conversations around how inefficiency is bad, and they're going to buy from us because they're really struggling with this inefficiency. Well, that's not going to happen. It happens sometimes, but only to the extent that that inefficiency has a deeper negative impact on somebody that has the power and authority to make a purchasing decision.
So if you're speaking with a prospect and they're describing an inefficiency or a difficulty, how do you know it's a real pain?
That's where you've just got to probe a little bit deeper and ask another question. Well, Joseph, you tell me that that's inefficient, so what? I wouldn't say so what in prospecting conversation. We're just chit-chatting here though. Yeah, so Joseph, how's this inefficiency impacting you and your business?
Oh, it's been really, really tough. We lost 2 customers last week.
2 customers?
I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Big ones?
They were huge.
That's not good.
There you go.
So now you're in pain. But you might not have been.
So we've uncovered the value of questions. We talk about pain and reward. One of the other things I think you do so well is giving people frameworks for how to think about things. And when you speak about conversations, you talk about the SCALE framework. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, the SCALE framework is what we use to measure rapport. And a lot of people out there say that sales is art. Well, people that say that sales is art don't actually understand neuroscience or how brains work, because a lot of times you do something to a human being, there's a reaction that you can anticipate. And if you think about it at a more granular level, then it becomes more apparent that it's really science. And sometimes science isn't perfect every single time. We look at it more like the drug discovery. So we talk about drug discovery and triangle selling. When you're at Genentech and you're trying to come up with the next cure for the terrible disease, you're going through this process of science and you're trying different things because typically you're going to get a certain type of reaction when you use certain type of chemicals in certain types of situations. Same thing with sales. And so we've got this framework called SCALE that we adapted from some research done at the Neuro Leadership Institute, where you look at status, certainty, autonomy, likeness, and equity, which are 5 drivers where we can understand if somebody's in rapport or not.
So when you're looking at those, is the idea to try and check all those boxes to get to a specific threshold? How would you use a framework like that to reflect on a conversation?
Well, you don't want to negatively impact any of the SCALE drivers. So status, for example, you can't go and say, hey, Joseph, everything that you come to work to do is wrong. And you can imagine a lot of discovery questions can come off that way. Because if you're telling me that what I'm doing is wrong, that means I have to go to my boss and say, I need money to fix what I've been doing wrong every day. That negatively impacts our status. Certainty, for example, imagine that we're doing a cold call and we just start asking questions. Well, the prospect doesn't know when it's going to end. At some point, it turns from questions to an interrogation. And unless we give certainty around how long we're going to be talking with them, at the top, maybe, hey, Joseph, can I tell you why I called in 30 seconds? And then you can decide if we keep talking. 30 seconds, you know exactly what's going to happen.
You know what we're getting into. This is good.
Yeah, exactly. And then A stands for autonomy. What's the worst thing that we can do to a human being while they're still alive? Where do bad people go?
Well, we take their power away. We put them in jail.
Put them in jail. No autonomy. They can't do anything. And so we don't want to take away the prospect's autonomy. Give them the right to say no. Walk away. Have a say in this decision. And then the L stands for likeness. People want to be like their peers. If we look at organizations that are similar to our prospect and we have some good stories that we can tell, that's going to be much more credible than us just telling them how innovative and awesome our product team is. And then finally, equity, it's got to be fair. If I'm going to ask you 100 questions, then you should be able to ask me some too.
There we go. So we've got a framework for how we can make sure we're maintaining rapport.
Right.
We've emphasized and highlighted the value of that conversational awareness. A lot of this is based around the questions, the verbal cues that we have. What about some of those nonverbal cues that come up? What are some of the things that you see sales reps using well to try and navigate conversations better? Or the other way to look at it, what are some of the things that they leverage badly that prevent conversations from flowing?
Well, nonverbal cues, if you're inside sales and you have the ability to use video, obviously if you're catching somebody just on the first conversation out of the blue, it's not something that you can do. But if you got follow-up conversations with folks, get them on the video and watch their facial expressions.
Fantastic. So building video, getting that visual information, not just relying on auditory. How do you see sales reps using things like silences or using other non-verbal cues like sound or environment or maybe non-video visuals? Anything like that play into running a good conversation?
Oh, silence is huge. Ask me how much something costs.
So Corey, how much does that cost?
For companies of your size, typically $40,000 to $50,000.
I have to answer, don't I?
You have to say something, right? I'm not going to jump across the table like, is that okay, Joseph? Is that okay? Do you guys have a budget for that? No, I don't want to tell you or try to push you to tell me something. Just be quiet. The best time to use silence is when you're talking about money. There's other really good times too, but that's after you state how much something costs, just calm down. And for all of you folks that are working with your technical team, if you're working in a small company, you're working with founders on sales calls, you have to coach them to be silent because they love to talk, especially in these situations where you should be silent. Just calm down, put the phone on mute, let the prospect think, especially if they've got multiple folks on the call because they're talking amongst themselves. They're probably on mute. Let them get through that and then hear what they have to say.
As a founder, I'm guilty of that as charged.
Because you're excited, that's what founders do. They're so motivated and they believe that they are in a position to affect massive change and they want to talk about it. And that's good. And salespeople's job is to temper that just a little bit.
I love how you speak about the dynamic between sales reps and founders. I know our next conversation together is around demos, and I love how reps and founders demo products differently.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm going to save that. I love how you framed up that idea of business acumen and conversational acumen. I love how you shared scale as well as the value of nonverbal cues. As you think about conversational fluency, any final thoughts or recommendations for our audience that they should keep in mind as they equip their sales team?
The person asking questions controls the conversation. And if you're in a position where somebody asks you a question, you can either ask a clarifying question or answer it and tag a question onto the end. For companies like you, it costs $40,000 to $50,000. Is that in the range that you were expecting?
That's a great way to guide the conversation. That makes it more accessible, doesn't feel as threatening, and I get the idea of what you mean by you're controlling that conversation.
Exactly. I'm in control if I'm asking questions. If I'm answering questions, then you're in control. Salespeople should maintain control.
Thanks, Corey. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I think we had a fantastic conversation. Looking forward to chatting again, and happy selling. Take care.